I'm sharpening a bunch of mail order shears, but while I'm sharpening here, I'm thinking about the email I got this morning and someone else asking about the 800 millimeter radius. I think it's time I addressed it, and I can talk about it while I sharpen. So I saved some time. I've got a lot to do and even more. So let's chat about what the 800 millimeter radius is. This is a real controversial thing, and the person that talks about their machine does the 800 millimeter radius. I have not seen the machine. I've trained some people that have had his machine in the past, and so I'll just be clear up there. But let me tell you where the 800 millimeter radius came from. My friend Dennis Brooks, and if you go to some of my Sharpener's Jam videos, you'll see him there, and who is a friendly competitor, and he also has a flat hone machine called the Hamaguri. Good machine. I've trained people on it. You know, I often tell people, if you don't buy my machine, that's the one to get. So he's a second generation sharpener. His dad started in this business. His dad wrote, as far as I know, the first book on shear sharpening. I've written a book on how to take care of your shears, DIY shear care and repair, but I have not written one on sharpening, and I think one of the reasons I haven't is because of the problems that came about from his book. Now, when his book came out, I bought it and read it, and it was I agreed with pretty much everything he said in there, but he had a section there where he talked about the 800 millimeter radius. Having problems with his tip, by the way. And in the book, I think it's been a while since I read it, but in the book, what I recall was he took some shears like this that he had, and I don't know what line of shears they were. I think he said they were Japanese shears. And he laid them on his barn floor and drew a giant circle with that curve that's on the shears. Now this one's probably an 800 millimeter radius. I don't know for sure because I haven't laid it on my barn floor and drawn a circle. So if I drew a giant circle with the curvature on that blade, Larry said all the shears that he had, which I don't know if they were from the same manufacturer or different or what the deal was, but anyway, all the ones he had were an 800 millimeter radius. So he concluded that the Japanese shears have an 800 millimeter radius. Well, when I read it, I said, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. And then I got to thinking about it, and I got to looking at shears, and, you know, I've got a variety here, and let me just, I'm going to bring these up here. I'll hold them against my white shirt, maybe you can see. Can you see the curvature of the blades on those two shears is different? This one has a probably a lower radius, and this is a higher radius. This is probably 800. This is probably maybe a 600. I'm just guessing. And because such a big deal has been made about that 800 millimeter radius, every time I go to a factory or I talk to someone with any knowledge in shear manufacturing,
the answer to that question is it's all how the scissors designed, and a lot of scissors are a lot different. At least from my manufacturing experience and the tools that we make, we're going to have a different radius on different blades. You'll see some scissors out there that are extreme, and they're made like that for a reason. Anybody know why you would put an extreme curve in there?
Sliding.
Sliding.
One thing that's cutting real fast is at the very pivot point where that K blade is curved up. It's got more, it can grab more.
It actually gives you more surface. It actually gives you more cutting surface, which does what? It prevents something from happening. Pushing. It gives you more cutting surface. It helps you prevent pushing of the hair and letting the hair run away. 800 millimeters, I honestly can tell you I don't know who came out with that. I can tell you from a manufacturing standpoint, we have different blades. We have different forgings that they start off with a radius, and we maintain that radius differently for different patterns throughout all of them.
So the different shapes of the edges will, based on how the shears are used. And if you've gone to any of my International Scissor Sharpeners Association videos, the ISSA, you'll know on there I give on a written test. On the written test I ask what is the optimum angle for shears. And, the correct answer is 45. Does that mean all shears have a 45-degree angle? No. Some shears are designed to have a very sharp angle. Once again, this one that I pulled out, I said for slide cutting, that has a low radius. This has a very sharp angle. Probably I'll sharpen about a 55-degree angle because it's designed for slide cutting and slithering. I still left a nick there. I'll go back. What am I set on? Yeah. So most likely the optimum angle for a pair of shears to have, best balance between push or slide cutting, not pushing the hair or slide cutting, would be an 800 millimeter radius. But does that mean all shears have that or should have that? No, absolutely not. Excuse me. One of my shears, and I have a video, if you hunt through, on how to sharpen them. And one of those, the blade is almost straight. The other one, the blade is curved. Very low radius. So when you go to that one, if you did them both at 800 millimeter radius, you would mess up both blades. The way to follow the radius and not change the radius to give a consistent burr all the way down. So if you have the same size burr all the way down the edge of your shears, then you follow the radius. And so if you're a sharpener and somebody says, oh, can you put on the 800 millimeter radius? Your answer is absolutely. And I can do the 500 and the 1200 and all the other radii in between. Because as long as you've got the same size burr, you follow the radius. Now, where the problem comes in, and I'm sure this is what he was wanting to address, is that a lot of times people are sharpening, could be with a flat hone, could be with a more of the traditional grinder type machines. But if they come across, and let's wait till I get to the next shear so I can show you what I'm talking about here. Let's assume that you're using either a flat hone or a grinding type system, and instead of coming in here and following the curve of the shear, and that's why if you notice I normally will, if it's a short shear like this, I'll lay the whole blade on there so that I'll get the shape of it. But let's say I come in with my tip up in the air. I'm going to exaggerate so you can see what I'm talking about. If I come in here and then straighten out, or if I come in here and I lift up, I'm going to change the shape of that blade. So, improper sharpening like I just did that on a flat plate instead of a cushion. I was like, what is wrong here? And improper sharpening, which can come about by talking, can change that shape. And that is not good. You want to have the same all the way down. Now, that's in the real world. I mean, that's in the theoretical world. In the real world, and real world sharpening, which you see me do on some of the restorative shears, you're going to see me actually change the radius. Yes, I do change the radius. Why do I change the radius? Is sometimes there's a huge nick somewhere in the shear, and if I were to remove that nick but keep the same radius, I would take off so much metal that the integrity of the steel, the integrity of the shear wouldn't be there. It might fold hair because the blades would become so thin. So I may do a little bit. I mean, I don't do it often, but I mean, it does happen. I can't see if there's I can't see if there's a deep nick why you should remove a huge amount of metal from the whole blade. So in those cases, I might change the radius. Now, there's a lot of flat hone machines out on the market, and of course we sell the Cymec, and I happen to think it's the best. But in order to compete in the marketplace, you've got to come up with some reason why yours really sharpens better than the others. And I'm sorry, I can't, I prefer it, but I can't say it sharpens better than the others. I do the shear sharpening certification with the ISSA. I've also watched the sharpening being done with the certifications at the, at the NBTSG and others, that I know for a fact that people sharpen on different machines and the sharpening comes out great. The factories don't all have the same exact machines. So to compete in the market, you need to say why yours is the only one that'll do such and so in the other. And I understand marketplace and advertising, that type of thing. When we talk about our Cymec, I think that the things that we compare it to other machines, because you've got to compare, but you can do it without calling names or something. But where ours compares favorably, and what I think is better is it's a sturdier machine. It's this is steel. It's American made, and of course it's an American, USA. I'm pretty proud of what's made in the USA. It's the parts, some of the parts with the clamp and the arm are made in the same factory that makes items for NASA. It's also, if you notice, I sit down to sharpen. I have a lot of arthritis. This is just easier on my hands. This clamp is just, it's natural type of movement of your hand. And it doesn't increase the stress on my hand. My hand, the arthritis, I was told, was back during the time I was freehand sharpening. And a lot of that damage was caused back then. But as far as our equipment, it's the ease of use, the ergonomic for your body, and then it's also the fact that it's really, really sturdy. I think you've probably heard me, if you've watched some of my other videos, talk about when I came in first place at the National Beauty Tool Sharpeners Guild for my sharpening. Casper Kaiser, who I'll show a little clip of him when we asked him about the 800 millimeter radius, was one of the judges. Casper had been sharpening shears since he was a teenager. He worked originally for the Arias Eichert factory and then was in charge the Oster factory where they were making shears and clipper blades there in Tennessee. And he also, for a short while, sharpened shears on his own, not with a factory. So, in my opinion, he was one of the most knowledgeable people out there. And he said what all the other people that I've ever talked to with the factories is, just exactly what I said. There's a lot of different radii out there. But my philosophy is, if you're wanting to buy sharpening equipment, you want to get something as close to what they're using in the factory. This is not the time to reinvent the wheel. You want to look for something that's been around for a number of years and been in production for a number of years, so you're not the first one trying. It's like a car. They say not get the first model year. And you want to get something that fits your body, that's comfortable, that you can sharpen year after year. I have one sharpener. In fact, he used to have the Diamond Rose, and now he's got our Cymec. He is almost, I think he turns 82 in January. He's still out there sharpening. And that's what you want to think about, is the longevity. Is, this is a business that you can do. I was going to say until you retire, but you can do it until you die, really, because I think we were made to work and to have a productive life, and retirement, sitting around watching TV, playing games, it just doesn't seem to have the same purpose as continuing to work. So that's my little chat while I'm sharpening, because I get bored and lonesome when I'm doing a bunch of shears like this, and it makes my time go faster. And if you have any questions about any of these things, like the 800 millimeter radius, or about different machines, because I have trained on a lot of them. And as I said, ours is not the only one that'll do a good edge for you. But I'm talking, and I probably need to get back to what I'm doing, because I'm starting to make mistakes. If you know how to sharpen, you'll see I'm trying to do things. So there's the bone. Hello.